This video is sponsored by Stepcraft. Think it, make it. So if you're like me, you hate taking multiple trips with bags of groceries, and even though there's already a plethora of products out there that can help with this, I thought it'd be fun to design something myself to make transporting things from my car to my fridge a little easier. It would also be pretty funny to make something that would closely mimic brass knuckles, but with a much less intimidating material than brass. I'm starting the design in Adobe Illustrator, and the shape itself will be pretty simple for the most part. An opening for your hand to hold the grip, and two outward protrusions that will act as hooks for the grocery bag handles to hold onto. With that complete, I can start to add a few details that really bring out the faux brass knuckle look. And while we're at it, why not give it some fitting nomenclature with a fancy font? The font itself is called Vegan Style, and it's linked in the description if you want to try it out. I don't know what style this would be considered for the most part. I'm kind of just making it up as I go, but it does look pretty ominous, so that's got to count for something. I want to make sure I look as cool as possible while carrying an uncomfortable amount of bags, so this should do the trick. Once the design is done, I could take the Illustrator file into Vetric V Carve and begin to construct the cut file for the CNC to use. Since this is just going to be a prototype for now, I'm going to start with 1/2-inch B-grade pine plywood to see how everything turns out before moving to a higher grade material. 1/2-inch is too thin, so I'm going to be gluing two pieces together to give it a full inch in thickness, which will feel a lot more sturdy and robust. To engrave and cut out the shape, I'm going to go with Stepcraft's D840 CNC machine. This thing is incredible, and they sent this to me to try out, and I gotta say, for someone who is not intuitive with complicated machinery, this thing was incredibly easy to start using. Right out of the box, it's ready to go. All I needed to do was load the software onto my PC, plug everything in, and start designing. Thank you so much, Stepcraft, for this CNC. I haven't been this excited to start making things in a long time. It's really reinvigorated my process for projects of all kinds. If you're interested in purchasing something like this, look no further than Stepcraft. I'll have a link to their products in the description, but getting back to the cutting, I only needed two different bits for this, one for engraving and the other to cut out the profile. I used a 90-degree bit for the engraving, but to be honest, I would have much rather preferred a higher quality 60-degree bit instead, but regardless, the cut looks pretty good and took no time at all, but everything is looking pretty good otherwise. I also put 1/8-inch tabs on all the offcut areas, which if you're using plywood, they just snap off pretty easily, and I don't have to cut anything. Now I can begin to glue everything up, and this piece of plywood is actually from my kitchen remodel. I believe this used to be the pantry. I demoed the kitchen last year for a much better remodel this time around. First go was more of a quick facelift when I first bought the house, but either way, I kept the materials for other projects, which is why one side of this board is painted white. Won't matter though, because the glue will hold all the same since it's a rough, porous cut of plywood. So after using every clamp I could possibly conjure up from my hoarder's nest of a garage, it's time for the initial sanding. This can easily be done with hand tools, but I opted to go with some of the stationary sanders I have on hand just to make things a little quicker. If you plan on making something similar and staining it, you definitely want to make sure you clean up all the glue, because if not, the stain will look pretty blotchy. That's done, I'm going to smooth over the edges with a small router and a 1/2-inch roundover bit. I would really prefer to do this on a routing table, but this is all I have at the moment. So just making sure I do this as safely as possible by keeping a firm grip on the wood, while only traveling counter to the rotation of the router itself in a slow, methodical way, as to not let the piece slip or let the router harm my fingertips. Routing over the edges, I think, is what really sets this off, to be honest. Yeah, it works fine without, but comparing it to the before and after, I'm really glad I did this. This can also be achieved with the CNC, but I don't have the correct bit for this just yet. Now it's on to the finishing, where I'm going to soak it in a few coats of high-gloss polyurethane. Again, this is just a prototype. Once I test it out, make sure the bags don't fall off and everything works, I'll bump up to a higher quality wood, which makes the intended finish go on a lot better. Close up, you can see I lost a little detail in the text, and once it dried, the pine was so porous that it pretty much lost all the gloss. So it really pays to use better wood, so next time for sure. especially now when I wanted to paint the engraved portions black. Theoretically, if wood has a sealed finish, you should be able to wipe away wet paint, but as I was painting this, I realized the wood just did not want to cooperate, and you could see the black start to seep into the fibers where I thought the polyurethane would be, but it did not work out too well. So I took the others back out to have even more coats applied to see if that would help, and lo and behold, it kind of did. Not perfect, but again, not bad for B-grade plywood and a prototype. Now for the finishing touch. What's a brass knuckle look like without some form of spiked front or impact point, whatever you want to call it? I've had these little furniture thumbtacks collecting dust for years now, and it's time for them to be called to duty. But that just about wraps up this video. Guys, thank you so much for watching. This was a lot of fun to make, and it's a great stocking stuffer. If you want to make some yourself and give them away as gifts or even sell them online, there's a lot of opportunity here. Thank you, Stepcraft, for the incredible D840. This thing is a lot of fun to use. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe. It really goes a long way in helping this channel grow. But regardless, thank you again so much for watching, and I will see you next week for another exciting project.